The ancient world is full of fascinating mysteries. One of my favorites is giant trees. But not only were the trees giant, many other things were giant, including people, half-breeds, and even lots of petrified remains that show all this stuff. We're going to dive deep into this and some science behind it. Were all these stories real, or are they just legends? And if they were real, what happened? Why did things change? We're going to be answering all these questions as we deep dive into giant trees. Let's go. So if there was ever any evidence of the trees being petrified and cut down, this is probably it. This place right here I hunted down. It's called Momo's Wing, and it's in Nevada. For a long time, the location was kept hidden, but it's in the southwest with lots of other petrified-looking old palaces, giants, or beings. Like all my videos, we're going to talk about lots of other things. If there was ever anything that looked like a giant axe still resting on top of a giant tree stump that was cut down, this surely is it. There's lots of places that look like giant petrified tree stumps. We know petrification is a process from cataclysmic events that can happen instantly. Places like Devil's Tower and places all over the world. Also, side note, lots of places around the world have the ominous Devil's title or other similar title, and they all seem to be connected with supernatural events or magnetic anomalies. Also, lots of land masses such as Hawaii that look like they could be giant beings, which they explored in the Moana movie, or just mountains in general that look like they could be old giants, like some of the pictures you see here. So a question one might naturally have is, why were the trees cut down? One theory explores the idea that angels were told to cut the trees down so that the giants would not climb the trees during the flood, although I'm not sure about that one. Could the reason the trees have been cut down tie into why there's no longer bells, and the tons and tons of bells that were cracked, destroyed, removed, and no longer exist to clear the atmosphere? Are we looking at a scenario like that with the trees, the giant, oxygenating, life-expanding friends of humanity? It's all a big mystery, but that's what we're here to explore. Speaking of mysteries, on a U.S. mystery conspiracy road trip that you'll be seeing coming soon, one of the places I explored was Mount Rushmore, and I found an even more interesting mystery than the reason I was there. If you explore these pictures, it looks actually like Mount Rushmore is a giant herd of clustered petrified mammoths. Check it out. Are there any other evidence or mammoths or giant elephants petrified around the realm? Let's take a look. There's one, for example. Also, there's a documentary about uncovering a titan where they go deep into the science of possibly a giant elephant. Clues, reminders, and messages from the past. What do they mean for us still here today? I think one of them is the Dead Sea, which is probably where Sodom and Gomorrah happened, which we've explored recently and talked about how that reset pattern results in instant petrification or beings turning into pillars or mountains or salt. Also, the Dead Sea is the lowest place on Earth, so in connection with portals to the underworlds, when you're floating in the Dead Sea or at the Dead Sea, you're actually closest to the underworld than any other place on Earth. And the reason why the Dead Sea is like that chemically has to do with the sulfuric meteor rain down and things you read about in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, the reset pattern, that also results in the petrification we're talking about. Which also, if you explore places like the Grand Canyon or the Southwest, it looks like they're a bunch of just petrified palaces. Speaking of petrified palaces, we'll close with a really fascinating mystery. The place known as Petra in the Middle East, with literally Petra as the prefix for petrified. Petra meaning the rock, which was also why Peter was named Peter, and they called him the Rock. But anyway, Petra ties in with Judgment Day. If you didn't know, there's passages where Jesus, on his return making his way back into the Mount of Olives, it says he'll be in a battle at Idumea and at Bozrah. You can check it out in Isaiah and other Old Testament passages that tie into Judgment Day and the return. It says he fights a battle at Bozrah, where he alone treads the winepress, and his garment is pretty much stained with blood from the battle that he fought alone. It also says where you see here where the palaces of Bozrah will be petrified pretty much, or burnt to a crisp. Where is Bozrah, you might ask? Let's check it out on a map. If you look at Bozrah, seems to be Petra. Speaking of petrified palaces or burnt palaces, that's probably what Petra is. Also in Jordan, the place Bosarea, which is really close to Petra, is just a bunch of rubble. So if Petra does tie in with this prophecy of Bozrah, which it seems like it does, that invokes a whole new mystery about the millennial reign. Where are we really living? By the way, the post-millennial reign theory is not the preterist view. Are we in Satan's little season? We'll be exploring that coming up. In the meantime, ponder what all these messages from the past are really saying. See you next time for more mysteries on The Savage Truth. To a lot of people that sounds good, but they still need more proof. Giant trees, mushrooms, and snakes, garden/gons of the Elohim, instant petrification, including maybe metal, plus some possible petrified jellyfish and other science anomalies that all have a common thread of ancient world mysteries, with fascinating rabbit trails along the way. Let's start with this iron ladder in Jura, France, and the thought of metal petrifying. While technically a corrosive process, and then transitional metal theory, the outside is actually encased in some sort of calcification, lithographic, petrification process. As you see, it retains the original shape of the object at the core. This ladder isn't even 150 years old, and it's not fully understood by science how it happened. Probably a galvanized calcification effect. Still lithographically appearing as hard stone like a petrified ladder, with iron inside that you wouldn't even know just by testing the outer layer. When you test the outer layer of stuff, I suspect you're going to find something different than what's inside. Such as sandstone, for example, which is just petrified sand. So if you're in an environment with sand and wind, the outer layer is probably going to be sandstone. Either over time or with an instant cataclysmic event where atmosphere seems to fuse with the environment around it. Lithification, by the way, is a process kind of things turning to stone, sediments compacting under pressure, becoming solid rock. It reminds me of Momo's wing, the thing that looks like an axe with a tree stump that I showed recently. Whether stone weapons, iron axe that's petrified inside, like the ladder in Jura, or a giant swinging on that one and done tip, or being cut with angelic technology and then an axe being left as a message, which is the thread we're about to dive into. Reminds me of Daniel 4 when God said to cut down the tree with an axe, but leave the stump in the earth and put an iron band around it. It was a display, it was a message, a metaphor of judgment used for beings, just like in Ezekiel 31 with trees and beings. God speaks in symbols. This ties into other layers of dreams and the Mazzaroth, which you can find on my page. But what a message for humanity and for all time. Cut down a tree, then petrify it so it remains there forever, for everybody to see. Maybe that's why we've been taught what to think about the world around us, and why so many people get riled up at the thought of a different narrative, especially giant trees. Is Table Rock one? It's a prohibited area. By the way, the top layer is basalt, which has an interesting relationship with petrified wood. Coincidentally, petrified wood is also illegal to collect. And for some reason, collecting petrified wood from places like national parks or other places is considered cursed and to bring a curse upon you. Lots of deterrence from investigating into this petrified wood phenomenon any further. Also, a thread of valuable things inside of petrified wood or basalt, like diamonds or gemstones. Anyway, you can always count on the richest people with the most power to always tell you the most truth, for sure. Basalt is supposed to have a relationship with magma and lava, which I'm sure it does, but also petrified wood has been found inside of hardened magma, which doesn't make sense because it would have combusted. Anyway, how about this one in Tunisia? Pretty convincing. You can even see the rings on the top. Also, I brought up the Devil's Tower recently. Supposedly, there was a study about seismographic readings where they found a petrified root system, and then the article was deleted, supposedly from a university study. Probably fake, but maybe not, because Smithsonian style, that does seem to happen. But what's definitely not fake about the Devil's Tower is that no one knows how it's made. It's all theories. Scientists don't agree with each other about how it's made. One of the top theories is volcanic magma. However, there is no volcanic activity anywhere around there. Zero evidence of it, period. Moving on to another fascinating mystery involving God, angels, and the mysterious garden/gons of the Elohim. The Garden of Eden is also known as the gons of the Elohim, gons coming from the Hebrew word, which kind of has an implication of a walled or enclosed structure. Some even go as far in the etymology to liken it to a force field domed structure. And with the standard copycat pattern, you see some copycat gonzes of fallen angels that they try to establish on Earth, along with the copycat Babel pyramid platform cultures that align to Orion. Reminds me of the Hanging Gardens in Babylon. Also, the Sumerian tablets show this genetic altering, and they show some gons/tree pictures as well. With this genetic altering, theories about all kinds of rejects being cast out for one reason or another, and that's why you have cryptids that are roaming the Earth. This opens up a fascinating possibility tied in with other research about the Amazon, and the Amazon could possibly be one of these gonzes. There's evidence of intelligent planting and gardening, and that the entire Amazon was at one point an intelligently planted garden. Anyway, let's check out some amazing structures. Have fun freeing your mind. This is all for entertainment, by the way. Check out this giant petrified mushroom. You can clearly see the stem, the cap, even the ring, as well as the striations, gills, and scales, which are all technical mycology terms, by the way. Plus, there's this pic here. So yeah, this one's actually admitted that giant mushrooms did indeed exist. Also, petrified dragons, like this picture here in Iran. Giant iguana, perhaps. Or this giant petrified snake, Naka Cave in Thailand. Super detail on the scales. Also, stoneface from the Shawnee National Park in Illinois. Don't worry, Rockefeller curriculum worshiper, this is just pareidolia, every last single example, ever. This really brings new layer to the scripture about receiving a heart of flesh instead of stone. But really, when Jesus talked about if these were to be quiet, even the stones would cry out. Kind of like they did moments before being petrified, and if you reanimated them, bet a lot of them would still be crying out for mercy. Touching into the truth of evidence of these physical reminders all around us. Really tap into spiritual hatred by revealing the defeat, covering up losses, tying it to the future Tartarian millennial reign video plug. Clear aspect of a past hidden, just like anything that has to do with God in this matrix. Let's look at some mythology and legends for a second that all tie in, like Paul Bunyan, Jack and the Beanstalk, the Mario vine that goes into the sky, and even Yggdrasil, the Norse tree of life that connects the 9 realms. While on that legend movies tip, the recent Shazam from 2023, in the opening scene at a museum shows an empowered artifact that has the Spear of Longitus backstory, but appears just like the staff that Gandalf has. Check out the exact resemblance, and it supposedly comes from the Tree of Life. And when they get this artifact, they instantly petrify everybody with it, just like the Medusa head. In research of the ancient world, you'll also find a deep thread about a time when there was a canopy. The stars looked different, and when the canopy fell and the sun was exposed, giants and certain beings turned to stone instantly. Tying into the legends of why certain beings can't go in the sun or they turn to stone. Could all of these data points and legends tie into a common thread of truth? Oh, to save you the 10-hour book report, every ancient culture mentions petrified beings or objects that can instantly petrify somebody, or people being instantly turned to stone by methods. Oh, by the way, with all these legends, the idea that all these ancient cultures or native tribes just don't know what's up and they're all stupid is really kind of a ridiculous conclusion if you think about it. Quick blast of anomalies / impossibilities in the scientific record of this weird realm. Petrification in science like flash fossilization, like fish eating other fish, or animals giving birth, or eating with undigested food in their belly, or the impossible petrified jellyfish, a non-vertebrate being petrified, or the completely soft membranes of dragonfly wings, or moth and fly wings, petrified, perfectly preserved, as well as sperm from a worm-like creature, instantly turned to stone. No way to explain it away. Also, there's the Martil study from the University of Portsmouth where he demonstrates instant petrification. Branches of paleontology that deal with fossilization like taphonomy, which is the study of what happens to things after they die, along with Martel have engaged in tons of experiments, mainly with fish, in the avenue of proving and duplicating different ways that this can happen. Check out this crustacean pic. One of the key understandings about this realm and scientific understanding is based on control and reproducibility of a set of events or conditions. And with cataclysmic events and atmospheric changes, everything changes scientifically. You can see in pictures like this that the structures are always the same color as the dirt, tying into the thread of instant petrification, semi-flash melting and infusing of topography and structure, plus any natural layering of erosion over time from the environment. Conclusion and reveal. Like the best mysteries to explore, they seem outside of the paradigm at first. Things at first it seem like they could be a stretch, but end up making sense. One thing's for sure, this mysterious tree thread is all throughout the Bible from beginning to end. From the first page to the climax to the last page, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden, to the end back in paradise with the tree of life, to the climax of it all being redeemed on a tree of the cross by the first fruits of the resurrection, Messiah, Yeshua. Plus lots of other mysterious tree connections, over 300 references in the Bible. Different trees represent different things, like the fig tree in Israel, or the palm tree cherubim tetramorph connection. But in close, we're going to focus on one thread of the tree message, and it ties in with the axe to the stump like the Momo's wing display. The common theme of cutting down the tree. Ezekiel 17:24 says, "Let all of the trees of the field know that I, the Lord, have cut down the high tree." Dreams of trees falling, the Nebuchadnezzar metaphor of him being cut down, the display of a tree with a stump still in the earth with the band of judgment / iron around it. God wants it to remain as a message. Cut the trees down, but leave the roots in. Let's fast forward a little bit. In the New Testament, it says the axe is already at the root of the tree, ready to pluck the whole thing. You see this pattern of mercy and the escalation of the warnings. And warnings against those who don't produce fruit will be thrown into the fire. In Jude, you see a picture of a tree twice dead, withered or no fruit, plucked up from the roots. This plucked up from the roots twice dead also ties into the second death in the book of Revelation, which is the complete contrast of God's perfect plan for us, which is for us to be like a tree planted by the living waters, producing good fruit. Maybe that's why there's such an effort to hide the past. 1 Chronicles 16:33 says, "The trees of the wood will sing out in the presence of the Lord." Don't ignore the warnings, and remember, stay rooted. See you next time on The Savage Truth. Sometimes in life we get cut down. Pretty big tree here, definitely had a lot of seasons, a good run. But sometimes in life we get displaced or have to start over. I remember when my 40K Savage Truth account got cut down, had to regrow, moved to YouTube, had 1 follower, had to grow. I remember a lot of people along the way that watched, liked, commented, subscribed, or shared with others. Like this one lady
would be the Savage Truth 524 or just Savage Truth 524. This dude is amazing. If you want super like concise, rapid fire information about subjects that you have never even fathomed, I would definitely follow him. He is mostly on YouTube now. He is also pretty funny, and I love that he sprinkles in very optimistic, positive messages to remind you to remain wise as a serpent but innocent as a dove.
To every one of you that has helped me grow, I want to help you grow. That's what this whole Savage Truth campaign has been about. No matter what, make sure you grow. Ezekiel 31 is constantly making reference to trees the entire chapter, constantly making reference to Eden and the underworld. Eden and the underworld, the abyss, Tartarus. Future plug on the next comp I'm making also about the ancient world seems to be a nexus point at the flood. Around that time, so many spiritual things were happening and atmosphere-like event-changing things that happened that made this whole world different. The reason why things were the way they were then and why they're not the way they are now. But also, the Bible does say the days of Noah coming back around. The reason why we're seeing more of these UAPs in the air, also another future comp coming. The mysterious orb invasion. What exactly are we seeing in the skies? But back to the flood, Tartarus, the underworld, the marine kingdom. We're going to be diving into that next time. But for now, the main thread with the Ezekiel 31 tree seems to be like this tree that grew great was actually great because it was blessed by God. But it forgot the reason it was so great. Filled with its own pride, it had to be cut down. Although addressed to Pharaoh, there seems to be a lot more going on behind the scenes in the spirit realm. But also a lesson that we can take away. And hopefully we'll be like that tree that's planted by the waters, the rivers of God. And also circling back around to the tree of life in the New Jerusalem. No matter what, make sure you keep growing. See you next time. The Savage Truth. If that's your lifetime, then make it call it art. Meanwhile, I'll G-smile, try again, redial. Walk infinity miles, my life a freestyle. Spit by the one who framed the world, yeah, I carved the darkness. Stay like for the hardest bars, they can't starve the harvest. Go to war against the seed, eventually you'll destruct. Colliding with God's plan that was meant for me. Meet your end, let's not pretend that all I have and see. I told you, go through the fire, boy, it's chemistry. Now react, don't hold back, want it, homie, that's a fact. Don't